All right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started. So, thank you all, first of all, for being here. And if you are watching the recording later on our streaming, thank you as well for watching. We're glad to have you here. I am Liz Landry, your KW Talent Community Leader, and your host this afternoon for this expert interview. And we are here with Christine Marchesiello, agent, team owner, KW Talent strategist, and friend to talk about getting your business kind of started, launched from level one, just you, to that level four area. For those of you that don't know, level four, we would kind of consider that where you've got you, administrative assistant, so an EA, probably a TC at this point as well. So probably two people on your administrative side, and licensed support staff in the form of probably a buyer's agent, showing assistant. You don't have anybody taking care of listings yet. So you, as the rainmaker, are still doing that. And that's what we would look at and call a level four business on this. So as we're going through this conversation today, we're talking about that journey in the early phases of your business from solo to that level four small team. And small doesn't necessarily mean tiny in volume. That could be a really powerful team. And that's what Christine is absolutely, probably better than anybody else, really good at talking about and articulating. And that's why we have her here today. So, Christine, thank you for being here. And first, what I'd like to ask is tell everybody a little bit about you and your journey from going from single agent to level four, because I think it's really important for them to have a little bit of context. So if you could give us the 30-second version of what life looked like as a single agent and why you finally made the move to start building a team and go that route.
So this is my favorite thing to talk about because I think it's the most impactful thing as you journey through this team building experience. And that's because you are probably someone like I was who is just so overworked, running around doing all the things as a single agent, thinking that nobody can ever do this better than you, thinking nobody could possibly write an MLS description better, do all the little things, plus managing getting new business. You're basically all the roles that exist on a large team when you are your own individual agent. So that was me doing all the things, running around, had two kids, 3 and 6 years old, got to the point where I honestly just couldn't even look at myself in the mirror and think like I was a decent mom, decent wife, just couldn't enjoy any free time, didn't have any free time. And I finally just committed to hiring an assistant, and from there it changed my life. So that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I truly believe that this is the spot you can make a huge impact on your quality of life as a real estate agent.
Awesome. So now that you all understand that, and some of you are going, yep, 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 no quality of life. Yep, not doing the parenting thing really good, not really servicing my business really well either. That's one of the key things when we look at why do we actually step out of level one, just us from single agent, and start getting assistance. It's generally because everything else is starting to fall apart. Your life's kind of falling apart. Your business is kind of falling apart. Your transactions might be falling apart. Things aren't going as smoothly as they once were. And generally speaking, that's because you've hit a level of business where you're doing all you can do with the time and the resources that you have available, right? You've hit your natural ceiling of achievement. And as Gary says, when we've hit our natural ceiling of achievement, we've done all we can do with the time allotted. We're missing a key relationship. So, Christine, since everyone knows kind of what led you to actually start that team, talk to us about maybe what it looked like for you to actually start sourcing and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm actually going to hire. What were your first steps that you did? And would you recommend that anybody else do those again? Because I'll tell you, I did all my first steps wrong, just so everyone knows. There's a reason I'm facilitating this interview on this phase and not being interviewed. I did it all wrong. So we're not going to listen to my advice. Christine, what would you say about yours? What did it look like for you when you actually started doing it? How did you start taking those steps forward?
Well, I like to think I do most things pretty right, but that's because I take so long to do them. And so that, take it or leave it, I mean, good or bad. But for me, I had to, it's just like the MREA with Think a Million is the first. And for me, it was Think Assistant was first. I had to mentally get on board with the fact that this could work the way they say it does. And I could have somebody else doing some of these things, and possibly my service wouldn't drop, and possibly I could actually have some time back, and possibly my business would actually grow.
I
So
I
all
can just
of these
hear the
things.
overwhelming confidence you had
Oh,
as
I
you were
had
going through this.
no confidence. Let's be very clear. I never wanted a team. Like, this was forced upon me through the pain that I was in. Like, I did not say, I want a team. Let's go. This is fun. Like, no, this was forced upon me. It was a necessary thing that had to happen if I wanted to continue in real estate, because there were many days where I thought that $60,000 day job looks real good, and I was making $600,000. So, yeah, I didn't really want to do it, but at the time, it was called Recruit Select, essentially career visioning, and I took that class a couple of times, and I just spent my time learning about hiring. And actually, because I knew I would suck at that, I didn't do it myself. I actually hired somebody to hire for me for my first assistant. So I did spend some time like thinking through, what is this person actually going to do? What am I going to pay them? And I remember an important decision was actually upping the pay, because now again, this is 2016, which is just wildly different economically than today, even though it's not so long ago. And I was going to pay $30,000 for my executive assistant. That's what I had decided on. And so a big decision was to pay $40,000. But Gary had said in some sort of mastermind or class I was in, don't think about how little you can pay people, think of how much you can pay them. And that really changed the way I looked at it. And I don't think I would have gotten the person I got if I didn't make that decision. So that's just a small nugget. But definitely spending the time to learn about hiring, what's important about a job description, just all those little pieces. For me, that's the way I do things best, is I learn it all, I absorb it all, and then I kind of spit out what my direction is in a way that makes sense for my brain.
I would attest to that of knowing Christine for probably 7 years now. She does get most things right because she does go so slow, sometimes to her own detriment on
Correct.
the analysis of them, right? Now, when we look at that, right, you were in the pain. You said a number there. You said I was looking at $60,000 jobs thinking they looked great because I
Yeah.
was making $600,000, but everything was falling apart. And so I
Mhm.
want people to hear that of, you know, Christine not only maxed out what she was capable of doing on her own, she really even took it too far, to a hindrance, right? And that can cause a lot of problems in their business. So, one, I highly advise you guys don't go that far that long. And if you are in that phase right now, understand you can do what Christine did. If there's literally not a minute left, there are companies and there are people and there are consulting firms out there that can help you source candidates for this first role. If you don't have time, you should have money, because those are the only two bartering tools you have. You can give your time or you can give your money. So if you want to save every dollar you've got in order to put it into that hire, then you better have the time to do it. But if you've got the money in Christine's case, but you didn't have the time to slow down, we can use hired out leverage for that. My caveat, my asterisk I would put on there is still just make sure you're involved in the process. You just might not be doing the sourcing of that. So,
Yeah.
Christine, you went through this and you made that decision to hire more. And that was in 2016 to point out. And so you hired for about $40,000. I would point out to everybody today that that's probably a $60,000 to $65,000 hire based on inflation, based on what jobs cost today. So what she hired then for 40, probably about 60 to 65
Hmm.
today. So just to put it in perspective in 2025 when we're doing this interview.
Yep, I would agree with that.
What do you wish you would have known when you made that hire that you learned in the next year afterwards, right? Because no matter how well you prepared, I guarantee there were learning lessons, right? We all learn things when we make those first few hires. What do you wish somebody would have told you up front when you were going through that process that you can save somebody some of those pains or headaches on today?
Well, number one, you nailed the one mistake that I would say if you had asked, which was do
I
it
love it how
sooner.
she's
Like,
she's only had one mistake. There was only one. It was the one mistake.
no, 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 no. The biggest mistake is what you already mentioned, which was don't wait until you get to that point where things are starting to crack and break. Like, definitely do it sooner. So there's that. But in terms of the hire, The thing I would change is not thinking that you have to have everything ready to go. So you don't have to have every system built out. You don't have to have every procedure written down. I think this is one of the top three reasons people don't hire. One is obviously financial, but this is another one. They think that they have to have the entire, here's how I do this, here's how I do that, here's exactly what you're going to do. And then they're too busy for that. They don't have time for that. And then they don't do it. So, um, instead of trying to have every single process mapped out, just let that person do it. Like that's their role as the executive assistant, is to document what it is you do. So literally you can hire somebody with a general idea of what you might want help with, but they can be the ones to actually document, okay, here's what I just observed you doing. How does this look as a procedure? And you just have to just gut check it and say yes, no, maybe so. But you don't have to do all that work, which was overwhelming to me. And of course, I thought I had to do all of that. But looking back, just trusting that person that you do hire a little bit more to be the person who's going to document the systems better than you, and actually uncover some ways that it won't work between the two of you. Because when you're just a single agent trying to document everything you do or set up systems for your new assistant, you're not going to see it in the way that two people have to work on it. So it's actually better to wait and let the assistant do that with you or for
I
you.
th- I think that's a really key point. Now, knowing you, I know that would have gone against every fiber of your being when you hired that first person to not have all the processes and systems documented for them to follow and to allow them to do it. But you do know better now. And I'll tell you, we have a great interview that I did probably about a year ago with Gene Rivers on how to actually have your first admin shadow you and document those things, where he gives some really good tactical information. So you can find it on YouTube. You can find it in our kwTALENT portal. Interview with Gene Rivers on hiring your first assistant and how to have them shadow, like what that should actually look like so that you're still being productive and you don't do what Christine did and say, well, I've got to now take on more workload in order to hire this person, because that's actually the opposite of what we want to happen. So
Yep.
thank you. That's a really good learning lesson.
Mhm.
Now let's jump into, you've gone from level 1 to level 2. It's you and an EA. How did you keep moving forward from that? Like, you didn't even want to start a team. That wasn't something you wanted, but you were
Mhm.
in pain. How and why did it keep going? And what did
I
that
mean,
process look like?
if you hire the right person, like I did hire the right person to start. She ended up being with me for over 5 years. And so it was the right person. So I know that this can go the other way too if you don't put in the time and hire the right behavioral fit for this role. But if you do, then slowly it's the trust building. That's what allows you to let go of more and more, is once you see that you can trust this person and in fact they might actually be better than you or doing these tasks more efficiently than you can while you're still so busy running around selling and everything, then that trust builds upon itself. And I used to say, like, the leverage and the trust, it's addicting. So once you see that something can be done and now you no longer have to do that thing that you thought maybe you didn't like, but you thought that it could never be given up, and you realize it was just given up and you have that time back, like that becomes the most addicting thing in the world. That was my experience.
That's an interesting way to look at it, that the freedom that you get from knowing that you can trust somebody else to do something becomes addicting and you want more of it.
That's how I
That's
felt, and that's how I continue to have felt on this entire journey from then until now, is like each little thing that proves itself, like, yeah, you might have some hiccups, but once you see that you don't have to do that piece anymore and it's still, whether it's clunking along or rolling along, either way, you're like, wow, like maybe this life does exist. Maybe this like nirvana of seventh level could be possible
that
someday.
book was
Like
right. The people weren't lying to me.
yeah, it starts to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's what I did, was just kind of peeled it off one thing at a time.
So go back and look at that. You said once you realize that you can trust it and you start seeing that these things are actually happening and happening correctly. One of the challenges when I talk to people on this journey in their early days before they've got a really solid established team is they don't necessarily know how to inspect that it's getting done, or to let go of that first time to see if it actually gets done correctly and to trust it. They always keep their hands in the processes. How do we advise people on, one, actually starting to let go in those early days when they they kind of just have to? And two, what would you recommend for inspecting what you expect when it comes to that, right? To then verify that, hey, it was happening the way it was supposed to, and now I can trust that and feel confident and I can do more. What would you say to people on those two things?
I mean, the quality control aspect to me, I see as an efficiency. So, yes, that's one more thing that you have to now do. You have to check up on this person and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But for me personally, to be able to let go of the things was worth the extra effort of quality control. And when I say quality control, I just mean you're meeting with them and you're saying, show me what you did. Let's tweak that. Let's revise it. Let's finalize a procedure. So it's like this ongoing hamster wheel, I guess, of kind of refining, documenting, proceduring, and then checking up to see that those are done. But actually, it's much faster with the right person. You can see pretty quickly when the right person is getting stuff done and they're doing things accurately, and they're actually, like every class says, talent will push you. So when you have the right person in place, they're not only doing things the way you want them done, but they're bringing it to you to show you. And they're telling you why they think it could be done a different way or what you could add on to that. And so this all revolves around the right person because that shows up in such a different way. And it makes that process easy. You're
So let's
building.
let's revert back for a minute then and talk about the person, because you keep saying it all revolves around the right person, having the
Yeah.
right person. And a lot of people decide to hire their cousin because they were
Mhm.
available and they didn't know how to hire and they haven't been
Yeah.
trained.
The
And
third reason why assistants don't work. This is the
right.
third thing. Financial, I don't want to document on my own systems, and then I already tried that and it didn't work. So those are
Yeah.
the three.
Yeah. So when we come to identifying that person, one of the things I always like to tell people, I'm like, they're like, well, how do I know when I'm actually interviewing talent? And Christine said it. She's like, talent will push you. But a way I like to look at that is like, you should actually be physically uncomfortable sitting across from this person when you're interviewing them. Like, oh, I'm actually going to have to do my job like the way I say I do my job.
Yeah.
And I can't let things go, right? Like you
Hmm.
actually have to show up the way you're supposed to. So I always tell people, I'm like, you'll feel uncomfortable sitting across from really talented people because they're going to ask you questions. They're going to push your buttons in certain places, not in a bad way, but they're
No,
they're not just going to be there and say, "Well, tell me what you want me to do." Right?
a
They're going to
100%.
give you a discomfort when you hire people, and especially in those early days when you hadn't hired anybody. You came from a teaching background. It wasn't like you were hiring everybody in that role. When you started hiring, how did that actually feel to you in the beginning for your first few hires? Did you notice it?
I mean, I still make mistakes now. So it's like I can talk about having the right person, but sometimes, it just you put all the pieces together and sometimes you get luckier than others. I mean, even though you always try to put all the pieces together correctly. But I mean, for me, the number one thing is just making sure they're behavioral fit. I mean, that is the absolute critical piece because anybody can do anything long enough who is talented, right? So like I could sell real estate long enough. I was going to do anything it took to be successful. But there's a reason I'm not selling real estate today. Like that was not a job for me. That was not a role for me. I was going to get it done, but if somebody else had hired me and said, "This is great. This is my exit plan. They're going to do this forever for me," I wouldn't have. And if you get like many people that I've heard through Implementation Pro and through just other speaking and talking to people over all these years, most people hire people they like. And talent is going to feel actually somewhat unlikable maybe in the beginning because
Because
of the way
they're
they
probably
challenge
different
you.
and they're probably different from you
They're
too, because
different than
you're
you. They're
hiring
going to
for something
challenge
different.
you.
Mhm.
It's going to feel, I don't want to say combative, but almost like because they see if they're picking up what you're putting down, if you're selling them something and they're buying it, they're going to get excited. And they're going to push back in this way with this energy that might feel like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know about this person." And I think that that's a huge mistake when people shy away from that. They want to like their assistant. They want them to be warm and fuzzy and friendly, and especially the typical agent profile is that high I, high D. They just want somebody that's with them just like them. And that's a huge
They
mistake.
they want to be around people that they like, right? And we like
Yeah.
people
And
like
I get
us.
that. And it's like you got to resist that so much because all the jobs you need help with is the exact opposite person from that. So for me, it was just I understood that from the beginning and I was committed to getting it right behaviorally. And also for an executive assistant, that's a totally different profile than just a TC. You know, that person is going to build your business with you. And so they can't just be, meek and like check the box, check the box. Like that's fine,
They got to
nothing
push
wrong with that.
back.
But an executive assistant needs to, yeah, have a voice, have a say, have a little D in there. They also need to check boxes. They need to be builders. So you just really have to understand the person you're going for and then make sure that you're just not falling in love with the candidate. And this is why I removed myself from hiring because as much as I am not, a super social loving person in that way to strangers, I knew that if somebody started talking the way I liked, I would ignore everything else. And I knew that about myself. So that's why I personally removed myself from this initial hiring stage.
I think that's funny. Just because I don't really like people and I'm not a very
Not a
loving
natural
person,
people person, but I do love the right people, and that's a fault.
you're not a natural social person, is what it is, right? Not naturally social, where most of you watching this are actually probably
Are.
naturally social, right? If you are an agent or a mega agent and you find success in that, you're probably naturally social. Christine and I are kind of the anomaly where we were successful in spite of ourselves with real estate sales, right? Because we were both really good at the back end of things in our business. Not so much necessarily the everyone liked us because we were just so personable that we could get away with it kind of stuff. And
Correct.
your admin's not going to be either. They're going to
Right.
feel a little prickly and probably a little
Mhm.
dry to you. And that's a good
It's
sign
a
of
good
what you
thing.
want in that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. It's just different. So you got to get used to it.
Yeah.
Now let's jump forward. Let's jump a couple of layers in the model here, right? So level 2, level 3, you're hiring more administrative staff, right? If by model, and you should be following model on these things for the rest of you guys, you're ideally going to hire off the TC role off of your EA through your EA next. But that's not necessarily what we're here to look at. Where we want to get some of the pitfalls. So let's jump to that first agent hire. How did you know it was time to hire the first agent hire, and where do you see agents typically go wrong with their first agent hire?
That is such a big question.
That
We
was a
could have
big sigh. Yeah, I could
a
see that.
whole day seminar on this, but um, oh, I knew it was time because exactly what they say in the MREA happened. I hired my first assistant, and magically, I was now selling 75 houses by myself. And that was not what I wanted, right? Like, I didn't hire that person to all of a sudden be just as busy, just doing different tasks, but still have no time back. But that's what happened. She picked up a lot of the busy work, and therefore I didn't have to not answer my phone when it rang and ignore calls and leads, and I could actually service those new leads. So I did 75 that next year, and I was like, okay, this is not what I signed up for. So I was like, all right, I'm going to hire a buyer's agent. And I think that leads into like the number one mistake or decision point, I would say, is be very, 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 very clear on the type of team you want to build. Because at that point, you're starting to actually build something that you're bringing other people in and their income is going to rely on you. And I remember, again, analyzing this and thinking, like, oh my gosh, how will I ever give up my buyers? And I had a couple different calls with people. And I remember one of the people said to me, like, if you don't do this, like, they're going to just see it as like you're never really trusting me, you're never giving me all your buyers, you're keeping the best for yourself, you're giving me the leftovers. And like, well, I know that that's okay, and a lot of teams do that, especially if you're not selling 75 and maybe you're bringing on a buyer's agent at 25 and that's what's right for you. You might have to keep some of those. But for me, that was a huge moment to decide, okay, I am giving this person all my buyers. Like, I am going to build a specialist team, a Navy SEAL team. I'm not building a industrial team. I'm not just going to bring in every agent until I, can't bring on any more. There's no more seats. I was going to build a very purposeful specialist model team. So with that clarity, I was able to better develop what my value proposition is going to be. Think through all of those things of why would this agent join? Who is this person most likely? And I didn't get it right the first time. I ended up with a buyer's agent who I hired because I thought that the number one personality trait of an agent should be competitiveness, and that blinded me to everything else. So I hired this young kid who was like a star football player because I thought they're competitive. They've been coached. That this is the person that I want. Well, he was playing Pong on his phone while I was having my first meeting with him. So we quickly got rid of him. But I did nail it on my
Wait,
second
during
hire.
the interview or during your first
No,
one-on-one with
our
him?
first one, oh no, I hired him. And during our first, it might have been like a small group meeting with the
I
admin
feel like there's a
and him.
whole lot of other questions we could unpack about what did you miss during the interview process that we're
Well,
not
I
going
put
to
the
get into
blinders on
today.
because I
Uh-huh.
decided. So again, first hire went with the model, committed. Second one, I was like, great, I got this. I know what it takes to be an agent. It takes a competitive, driven spirit. That's all I'm going to look for. Not the case. He was
Yeah.
not
You
competitive
looked
or
at you
driven.
and you
Need
said
a job.
competitive driven spirit. I'll hire
Yeah.
that. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you hired your buyer's agent. Now you said you hired that at 75 units, and you also said like some people hire that at 25 units. I'll tell everybody out there, sales is not my natural forte. Neither is paperwork, right? Like when I hired a buyer's agent and an admin on the same day. Boom. Admin full time, buyer's agent full time. I'm offloading these things. And for me, that was at about 38 units. And I was like, I got to do something here because this is just not working. I was terrible with buyers. I was literally losing business. I wasn't even doing the business. And so it does look differently for everybody else. 75 is a lot. And that would be beyond many of your ability to manage 75 deals, even with two administrative assistants. That doesn't mean it's not beyond all of your ability. Some of you, that's going to be the answer, and you're going to be like, this is where I want to live. Some of you, it won't. So, to Christine's point on there, it's going to look different for everybody. But what I really want to point out on that is this was the point, and she said it, where she had to make the decision of getting crystal clear on what was she actually building. When you hire your first admin and you get that administrative support, you could still go a whole lot of directions. But when you hire that first buyer's agent, you are taking a leapfrog commitment on your model. And a lot of people look at it and they go, well, what do you mean, Liz? I'm building a team. No, there are three different core models when it comes to a real estate sales business: the independent, the interdependent, and the dependent model. And there are 1,000 variations in between all of those, right? So if we looked at that at a scale of 0 to 100, zero is not good or bad, it just is. A lot of people might be at a 25 or a 27 or a 36.2 or a 48.9. There's so many variations in there. But what Christine was crystal clear on, what she's talking about is what we do in phase one of the kwTALENT journey. We call it organizational clarity, right? It's one of those things where if you miss this crucial part, like you missed this, it's foundational, right? Think of it like a house. If you don't get it right for what you actually want to build, you're just getting a hot mess express of toothpicks, duct tape, and chaos built on top of it. And that's arguably one of the defining moments of building your business is what model am I clear and did I make the right licensed hire for that? So thank you for pointing out that crucial aspect, Christine. I think that's so important. Where do you see people go wrong here? Right? Like, so
Yeah.
you work with a bunch of clients, right? You work with our implementation pro clients, you talk to people all the time, you've grown a large sales team, you speak in market centers all the time. Surely you get lots of conversations of, well, let me tell you what I did. And you go, oh, yep, there it is. I see it. I see where you went wrong right there. What do you see the common pitfalls that people make aside from hiring somebody that played Pong in the first meeting?
Yeah. It's always, almost always, a lack of confidence in your value. I would say
Mm.
always. It's always a lack of confidence in your value. Why would somebody want to work for that? Why would somebody want to join a team and get 40%? Why would somebody like the struggle to confidently deliver a value proposition that you believe in? It's not just like I wrote it down on a paper, so here it is. It's I know the value I'm bringing. I know that I can change somebody's life. I know that I'm going to provide them leverage through this experience. I know that they're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars that they couldn't have without me. I understand a win-win and I can deliver it. That's the problem. They don't feel they can deliver a win-win and they're looking at it as a win, probably a kind of lose for you. they're not like looking at a true win for that person that they're
They
bringing
feel like a
on.
swindler, like
That's
I'm
what I think.
swindling somebody on this deal, right? They don't feel confident in it.
100%. So I would say some version of that is intertwined in almost every story that I hear about, whether it's a functioning team, but just not a well-functioning team, or whether it's a hot mess express. There's an invisible string of a lack of confident value.
Okay. So I'm going to pull this back and we're going to say, here's the key things that I heard from going from levels 1 to 4. 1, don't wait until you're buried, right? Like, do not wait until there is no breathing room and you are suffocating. 2, hire the right first EA and don't feel like you have to get everything documented before they start. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that are like, well, I got to get everything ready for them before I hire them. Not if you hire the right person. You just need to be clear with them of, I don't have anything ready for you, just so you know. You're going to be responsible for building it. That's part of the role. And the right person will be excited about that. And the third thing I heard on there was, well, I heard 2 in part 3 is clear on your model and clear on your value, right? Clear on your model and clear on your value that you offer for that. So Christine, we're at our time for the day, and I want to respect everybody's time of what they committed on this. So wrap that up for me. If you leave everybody with just one mic drop, one aha, one thing that you're like, if you heard nothing else today, here's what I want you to hear now as we wrap up. What is that for them? What do you want to make sure people heard today or that they take from this call?
Well, we didn't say these words today, but it's definitely the slow down to go fast, slow down to speed up. Like, take the time to really think through these things. It's the simple but not easy. It's all of that sort of stuff. It's not just something we say and then you go, yeah, yeah, that's for somebody else who thinks like Christine and Liz. It's worth it. So the slow down to speed up is 100% worth it. And you will get so much further ahead ultimately by taking the time at each little stage to just do the most basic things and put the most basic energy into getting it right. You'll end up light years ahead of somebody who just starts over, starts over, starts over, and then they make it finally, and then it's like starts over, starts over, starts over. They're going to be here, and if you just get it right, little tweak, get it right, you're going to be here. So that's the one takeaway.
You can avoid the implosion cycle, as I call it, of the step forward, step back, step forward, step back, the start over. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate your time today. And Christine, thank you so much for dedicating your time and talking about levels 1 through 4 and some of those common pitfalls we need to avoid. If you all need anything, you know how to reach us. You can take a look for our other expert interviews in the kwTALENT member portal, and some of them are on YouTube. So we will see you all next month on our next kwTALENT expert interview. Have a great day.